And I'm gonna call this meeting of the St. George Select Board to order, and we'll start by saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
So, can you hear me in the back? So for this to work, we're gonna all have to cooperate and be respectful and listen to our neighbors, okay? The issue before the select board tonight is whether the town will continue to follow the Maine Human Rights Act in the operation of the town's programs, services, and facilities, including our Parks and Rec programs. During our last meeting, several parents brought this issue to the select board. It was not on the agenda. And they raised their concerns. And they acknowledged that Maine law is not in their favor and prohibits discrimination based on gender identity. But they asked the select board to find some way around that. We're holding a special select board meeting because we're interested in being transparent and giving everybody in the community a chance to be heard before we make a decision. Now, you should know that a select board meeting is a limited public forum, which means that the public has a right to be here. They do not necessarily have a chance to say anything. We do want to hear from you though. And before we get any further, the select board can set reasonable restrictions on public comment in light of the number of people who are here and would like to speak. And so I would like the select board members to make a decision as to whether we're gonna limit comments to members of the St. George community. And also, a time limit for speakers. So what are your thoughts about that?
I think given the number of individuals here, people can speak no longer than 2 minutes.
Brian?
I would suggest 3 minutes.
Amy, what do you
I'd
think?
say 3 minutes and keep it to residents other, unless there's somebody here from the state, a representative of somebody here from the state, let them speak.
What do you think, Tom?
I agree with the rest of the board, and I'd say 2 to 3 minutes, so, I mean, yeah, it's gonna be hard to be exact, but we can. Just keep in mind that we wanna give everyone a chance to speak. 2 hours to fit it into.
Well, we had, the goal was to wrap this up in an hour, so we'll see. And also, I think people should be mindful of not just repeating things that other people have said, but it's important to get different perspectives. With respect to state representatives, my feeling is that if we're gonna limit our public comment to residents of St. George, members of this community, then a person who represents us who lives in our town could speak, but if you're gonna get to other state representatives, even our state senator, who I saw here somewhere, I don't know, Penny, if you live in St. George or not, but if you don't live in St. George, then I feel like we have to make a reasonable line somewhere. And so I'll make a motion that we limit public comment to members of the St. George community. And limit comment to, if people really think 3 minutes, that's not gonna be a lot of people, but the longer it is, I'm not eager to limit people, but it's just like how many? 2 minutes, 3 minutes?
Let's go for 2.
2 minutes. That's my motion. Is there a second? Any discussion about that?
I'd say we stick with 3.
I'd like to see 3 minutes.
if we go over an hour, we go over an hour. It's obviously gonna take more than an hour for everybody.
Well, how about if we do 2 minutes and then see where we are in an hour and if people, you know, if there are other people who haven't spoken yet? Or? Yeah, Brian, that is time. All right, well, the motion was for 2 minutes. All in favor of that motion? Okay, that's 3. All opposed? 2, okay. So
That
those are,
does get it. Some sort of-
yes, and that's limiting, yes, comments to people from St. George. I know there are people from other communities and, you know, you're welcome to be here, but this is a St. George Select Board meeting, so we need to hear from people who live here. The other thing that it's extremely important for us to all be mindful of during comment is that this is not about one individual. And we cannot say anything that would allow people to identify a child based on comments. So, and if somebody veers off that rule, then, you know, you'll be asked to step aside from the mic and, sit down. And if you can't abide by that, you'll be asked to leave. I hope that won't happen. I hope we're all gonna be respectful and listen to each other. So the way it will work is, you'll come up to the microphone, those who wish to speak and say your name and that you are a member of this community. And then you'll have your 2 minutes and not gonna. And during that time, the rest of us should be quiet. You know, we're not here to debate each other or have this turn into, some kind of, you know, rabble rousing, rowdy crowd event. So at the conclusion of public comment, with that portion of the meeting will end and your participation will end. And then the select board will discuss our response to the request from the group of parents that came last week and make a decision, and then the meeting will adjourn. Before we begin public comment, I understand that there is a member of the Human Rights Commission who is attending by Zoom. So that people know, the Human Rights Commission is the main state agency that interprets the Maine Human Rights Act and enforces the Maine Human Rights Act. And they have provided some written guidance to us. We also have the advice of the town's attorney. The select board members have that advice. But if Colin Hurd is on Zoom and would like to address the select board, we would invite you to do that now.
Good evening. Thank you very much for that introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all today. My name is Colin Hurd. I'm the Deputy Counsel at the Maine Human Rights Commission in Augusta. And as was introduced, the commission is an independent state agency, and we're mandated with enforcing the Maine Human Rights Act, which among other things prevents discrimination in access to public accommodations. And, you know, I'm here today, as we're all here today, because of an issue with a transgender girl playing girls basketball, and that there appears to be some local questions about that, whether or not that's allowed to happen. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the law. I'm not the town's lawyer. I'm not here to offer legal advice on any specific action, but as counsel for the commission, I am in a unique position to tell you what the law says and then provide you with some context about the Human Rights Act and about civil rights that are involved in this particular case. So what does the law say explicitly? Well, first of all, municipalities and local governments are considered public accommodations under the Maine Human Rights Act. And the act states that it's unlawful for any public accommodation to refuse, discriminate against, or in any manner withhold from or deny the full and equal enjoyment of the accommodation's facilities, goods, services, etc., on account of a person's gender identity. So in this specific case, a basketball program run by the town's recreation department would be considered a service provided by a public accommodation, and that would fall under the purview of the Maine Human Rights Act. Furthermore, the facilities that are used to support that program would also fall under the Maine Human Rights Act. So to kind of sum that up very briefly in layman's terms, what it's essentially saying is that under the Maine Human Rights Act, it's illegal to prevent a person from playing sports on the team of their gender identity solely because that their sex assigned at birth is different from the people that they will be playing with or against. Furthermore, under the same provision, it's illegal to prevent a person from using the restroom or locker room that most closely corresponds with their gender identity. So the law, the Human Rights Act is pretty unequivocal on these matters. Nevertheless, the commission does recognize that there may be occasions where the participation of a transgender person in athletic activities could pose a genuine risk of health and safety to either the transgender person or to others. Back in 2016, we published a memo from our commission council about this issue, and it primarily is talking from the education context, but I think it's equally applicable in this circumstance. So in situations where there is a genuine concern about health and safety, the authority that's supervising the athletic activity, so in this case, the town, can engage in an individualized assessment of the person's participation in the proposed sport. And that assessment should involve an interactive discussion with the person affected or their guardian. And that's in order to find a mutually acceptable athletic opportunity for that person, because we don't want to exclude people from public accommodations or education. So keep in mind that any health and safety assessment cannot be based on generalizations or on assumptions about transgender people. It should focus only upon the particular circumstances involving a particular person. So that's where the law is. I hope the board will consider that as they make their decision on this matter, and that everyone will keep that in mind today. And I'm sure you've already spoken with your attorney on this matter, and I will refer you back to your attorney. But thank you again for allowing me the chance to speak. And if your procedure allows it, I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the Maine Human Rights Act, but I understand there's a lot of people you got to get through today.
Thank you. I think we'll move to our public comment now, unless one of the people wants to ask a question during their time. And I would also say, along with the other ground rules about this, that we will not be engaging in any challenging or questioning in this room of a particular individual's gender identification. So if at some point, that's relevant or those health and safety issues were to come to pass, that is not something that would happen in this context. We'll now listen to your comments. So whoever would like to go to the microphone, is it on, Brandon?
Sure.
And Brandon's got his phone here, and we'll do our best to stick to the time so that we have as many people as possible.
And no matter what our views are, we're all here because we love St. George. Whatever anybody's views are, mine or anybody else's, we're here because we're concerned about our community. And I hope that's why we're all here. I know that's why I'm.
Yes, our town has made national news. Has made national news for our investment in the children in this community. And so I know that is a shared value, and I hope that gets us through differences on some occasional issues. But thank you, Chris, but we won't be generally entertaining comments from the floor. People should come up to the microphone and say what they wish to say. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for hosting this for us. So my name is Miranda Philibrown, and I'm a lifelong member of the St. George community. I went to St. George School for K-8. And it's where I, like many of us, learned, grew, and built lifelong friendships. And those weren't always in the classroom. It was more often on the courts and the fields, on the playgrounds and in the beloved woods around the school. And I didn't look like your average girl, and I still don't. But at St. George, I was made to feel respected, supported, and included by my peers, coaches, teachers, and community. Like others here, some of my best memories of St. George are from playing sports. This was sometimes on girls' teams and sometimes on co-ed teams. And regardless of the gendered mix of the team we played on, St. George was unique because it was about learning, play, and inclusion. At St. George, everyone had a chance to try a different sport or activity. No one was just a bench warmer and no one was an outsider. When our gym bleachers and field sidelines were packed with parents and community members, we felt your pride. We felt supported, appreciated, and even loved. And that follows students back to the classroom. It follows them to their first odd jobs in town. And it even follows them and fuels them to their high school graduation. Conversely, if students feel unsupported, misunderstood, or threatened, that permeates back into the community for years to come. That's why I'm heartbroken to hear that there's an effort to exclude an 8-year-old child from playing basketball with her classmates. St. George has always been a place that values exploration, learning, and kindness. Our school should be a place where every child feels safe to show up as who they are and try new things. When we deny a child that opportunity because of fear or misunderstanding, we don't just fail that child, we fail to live up to the values that we have fostered in St. George. I understand that parents, for these conversations, gender identity feels new and uncomfortable. It's even uncomfortable for those of us very well versed in it sometimes. There are resources available to help parents talk with children about gender and inclusion in age-appropriate ways. Resources from organizations like PFLAG, Equality Maine, and Out Maine right here in Rockland.
I'm sorry to say.
Excellent.
Who's next? So,
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Zoe Foster. I'm a resident of St. George and I'm a parent of 2 girls at the St. George School who both participate in youth sports through the town. For the past 14 years, I've taught in area schools. My master's degree is in education and I've taught students from pre-K through 5th grade, though not at the St. George School. As parents, as educators, as coaches, we all know that youth sports are healthy for kids. Beyond the physical benefits, being part of a team increases social connections, self-esteem, and a sense of belonging. It gives kids the chance to be mentored by caring coaches. Kids learn to cooperate with others, get along despite their differences, and work together for a common goal. A small town is like this too. We may not always agree. We may have different family values and opinions or ways that we are choosing to raise our kids. But ultimately, we find a way to work together because we all value the same thing, a strong community. I'm hearing that a lot tonight. Managing feelings of discomfort with people who are different from us is a normal part of childhood, and frankly, as Miranda said, adulthood too. A community is stronger because we have diverse viewpoints and opinions. Having to work with and learn alongside people you don't always agree with builds important skills and resilience. However, when we seek to exclude certain individuals or groups because of their differences, we are also teaching important lessons. This is particularly true when the people calling for this are leaders in the community, such as coaches, scout leaders, and school board members. Do we want our kids to think that anyone who is different from us does not belong? It has been heartbreaking to watch my kids learn that adults that they love and look up to in this community now want to keep one of their friends off the team. If differences in others make us or our kids uncomfortable, then we need to find a way to navigate this. Those resources that Miranda shared were also really salient. Every kid deserves to play sports and to be a part of a team, to feel that they belong. And every kid also deserves the chance to learn the important skill of accepting differences in others as well. Thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Ashley Lunt. I am a resident of St. George. I have 5 kids. 3 of which have gone through the St. George School, 1 is still a student at the school. I do work full-time as a firefighter and EMS provider, some for the town of St. George and some for a neighboring town. I do want to make it abundantly clear, I am not here in capacity as speaking for any of the organizations that I work for. I am here as a parent and a community member of this town. When this was brought up last week, those who spoke out were intentionally vague and indirect while refusing to state what they actually wanted. When asked if there was anything they wanted from the select board, the answer was no, and that simply wasn't true. I'd like to unravel some of the other false statements. First, at this age, there's no athletic advantage tied to boys versus girls. Physical differences are influenced by hormones which don't emerge until puberty. We're talking about 8 and 9-year-olds where height, strength, coordination, and all of those things vary more from child to child rather than by gender. Science does not support the idea that including this student would create an unfair imbalance. Secondly, was the concern that locker rooms or privacy, and those concerns don't apply here. Elementary players do not use locker rooms. They come dressed to play and they leave the exact same way. There's no situation that I'm aware of where children that are working with the Parks and Rec department specifically should be changing in a locker room in front of each other. That was never the case for any of my kids who all played sports. Third, I've heard people say that they're worried about media attention. What we should be more concerned about is the attention that will come from the exclusion of this child. A child who is told that they do not belong face real emotional harm. Kids who feel rejected are at higher risk for depression and self-harm. And as someone who does actually respond to these emergencies, I can tell you that those consequences are devastating and very, very real. No one who had spoken previously on this matter would be the one showing up to that call if this child continues to feel pushed out and neglected and not allowed. Finally, I want to speak to who we are as a community. We show up for one another during storms, fires, fundraisers, and for our kids. Including this child is not a radical idea. It's consistent with the idea and core values of who St. George is, with care and compassion. This is not about politics, it's about a 3rd grader who wants to play basketball with their friends. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ann Matlack and I live in St. George, and I am also the representative for this communities and the others in House District 43. And I'm here to say that this child, that the select board should follow the rules of the state. They should not be eliminating anybody from participating. When my daughter was a student here, the issue was race. And there was a bit of racism in her school when she was in the 5th and 6th grade, but they put a stop to it. The children themselves put a stop to it because they did not want their friend to be pointed at, taunted, or discriminated against. So it stopped. And I would hope that the teachers in the school, the parents in the school would allow students to stop this sort of unwarranted behavior. I believe most children in here in that school would probably want their friends to play. So this is something I'm really adamantly opposed to. I would like for the select board to vote in favor of adhering to the state law and not discriminate against a child. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Alejandra Flores, and I've been a resident here in St. George for long as I can remember. And I grew up in St. George with loving, caring people, and all I have ever experienced was respect and everything that other people have said so far. And it really hurts me to see a child get discriminated against and sorry, I'm nervous, but I care very deeply about this as a child who grew up like that. And sports were always a very important thing and it would just be awful. Sorry, I'm sorry. But I care deeply about this and it just hurts my soul to see this happening with people who I've known growing up, seeing people have these views, but no against them, but yeah, sorry. But yeah. Alright.
If there isn't anybody in this room that wants to speak, I know there are people, oh, here comes somebody. There are also people in the downstairs meeting room, and then we can also turn to Zoom.
Hi, oh, sorry, I'll get closer. Hi, I'm Tanner Connors. I'm a resident of St. George. I'm an aunt to St. George kids, and I coached youth basketball and co-ed soccer right here in town. I also skate with Rock Coast Roller Derby, which is your local roller derby team, which is a full contact sport that is very gender inclusive, and I'll say us women do very well. Thank you. So I've attended many games in this town, as I'm sure many people here have. And I think we all know that there is no equality in the athleticism or body structure out there on the court or field. The difference in height, weight, and muscle development varies so greatly in kids, and we all know this. We've all seen these games. In all my years coaching and supporting youth sports, I have seen kids over 6 feet tall competing against kids under 5 feet tall. Yet there are no complaints about unfair advantages or unsafe conditions. The town has not been asked to intervene and change their policies until a transgender child wants to participate. It is very clear that this request has nothing to do with safety concerns. However, I am concerned for the safety of all girls if we were to adopt a policy that excludes transgender girls from girls' sports teams. This decision would make all girls vulnerable to scrutiny and harassment. We are already seeing this in our country. We are already seeing girls being accused of being transgender for being too tall or too strong. It isn't only reinforcing to girls that they need to be small and meek to be safe and respected, but it is like it's leading to bullying and harassment of female athletes about their bodies. Making it the norm to focus on and critique girls' bodies is unsafe and unfair to all women and girls. This type of dangerous policy and culture can lead to invasive gender checks. What it will definitely lead to is some of our girls in our town choosing not to participate to avoid the scrutiny and harassment. If we are not careful about being inclusive of all bodies, if we allow people to hide behind false concerns of safety when really they're acting from hate and the need for control, we are harming all girls. Do we want St. George to be a community where girls don't feel comfortable playing sports? I hope not. Thank you. Hi, I'm Ashley Barkey. I'm a parent and a community member and a teacher in St. George. I moved to St. George 12 years ago and I began teaching at the school right away. In my first year, someone actually said to me, you know, it's strange. We don't really have gay kids in St. George. I was confused by that. Statistically, it felt inaccurate. And also, I've been working at the high schools and I have personally met kids from St. George who were not straight. In time, I figured out what was happening. We certainly had queer and trans and non-binary kids in St. George, but they were waiting until they left us to be open about who they were. Since then, things have changed. It seems like we have more openly queer people in town, but it's not because there are more. It's because we're doing better. We're doing better at proving to them they can be who they are here with us. This is a good thing, and it's a good thing for everyone. I'm not standing here advocating for the interests of one child or even specifically for the interests of just queer and trans children. I'm advocating for the interests of all of our children. Discomfort is not the same thing as danger. And when we react to things that are new or uncomfortable as if they're threats, and when doing so isolates our children from the reality of the world, we are not doing our job. Our job as parents and educators and community members is to prepare our kids to be part of the world. It's our job to teach them to collaborate and to empathize with everyone. This is a small town, but it's part of a really big world, and we're doing our children a massive disservice if we keep them sheltered from anyone who is different until suddenly they find themselves off the peninsula, surrounded by all the ideas that we tried to pretend didn't exist. When I watched last week's select board meeting, I kept hearing the idea that this kind of thing might be happening elsewhere, but not here, not in St. George. The implication was that our town is not part of the rest of the world, that we don't have all different kinds of people and that we don't want all different kinds of people. This view of St. George is wrong. I don't mean wrong as in bad, I mean it is factually inaccurate. Our community is diverse, it's welcoming, it's inclusive, it's part of the rest of the world, and all of our kids deserve that. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Tyler. I went to school up on the hill back in the day. I have a couple of young girls in the community. And I just want to say, I don't agree with a lot of what's been said so far. I think that, you know, we need to get up and voice our opinions. I'm sure there's some people here that don't agree as well. I don't think anyone needs to be shunned or hated on. I think that there's a lot of people just draw a line when it comes to boys and girls teams. Okay, I think that's what a lot of it is. And I think that if the state is gonna say that we don't have any power over, you know, boys and girls, you know, that kind of thing, that we need to push for state legislation that will give tax credits to homeschoolers so that we can stop giving our money to the public schools. Because whether we go to homeschool or not, they're still gonna get our tax money. It's really no loss to them. So if you're disagree with what you've heard tonight, like I do, we need to get some signatures. We gotta get the tax credit in the state of Maine so that we can stop funding this.
Okay. So I speak tonight as a parent and a proud member of St. George, a community that I respect deeply and the values that makes this town such a wonderful place to raise a family. As a mother of 6, my first responsibility is to protect my children and their future, not out of division or anger, but out of love. This situation is difficult for everyone, and it breaks my heart to know that no matter what the outcome, the children, all of them, will be affected. To be clear, this is an issue of fairness and making sure that at this young age, our children are supported in ways that are appropriate for their development. What we do today will impact our girls' future, whether people want to acknowledge that or not. And it would be naive to think our small town will be untouched by those same challenges we see nationwide. What happens when these children are in 6th grade? When the physical and developmental differences between boys and girls become even greater? If we allow unfair disadvantages to take root now, how will these girls have a fair chance to compete later? The choices we make today will last beyond a single basketball season. I respect that you all have taken an oath to uphold Maine law. Under Title V, Chapter 337 of the Maine Human Rights Act, it states that it protects individuals from discrimination based on gender identity and sex. The act defines sex as a person's biological condition of being male and female. That means these protections should be applied equally to all children. To give greater weight to one over another, to say that gender identity takes precedence while biological conditions are dismissed, is applying the law unevenly, and that in itself is risking creating another form of discrimination. I also note that under the St. George Town Charter, it states every town of St. George official shall take an oath of office to support the US Constitution. The US Constitution and federal law are supreme over state constitutions and laws, based on Article 4 of the US Constitution known as the Supremacy Clause. I'm not asking the board to violate the law. I'm asking you to uphold it fairly and in its entirety for all children, not selectively for some. Your responsibility under Maine and federal law is to uphold fairness and protect every child, and that includes ensuring that no group's well-being is dismissed or overshadowed. I acknowledge how difficult it is to sit in your position tonight and make decisions that everyone may not agree with. I ask that you consider these concerns thoughtfully and know that the decision you make tonight will shape the future of many St. George children. I love this community, and I truly believe that we can navigate these difficult conversations with grace and compassion without losing sight of the responsibility we have to our children. Joshua 1:9 says, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go." Thank you. Good evening. My name is Lily Hyde Seitzma. I have 3 children. I grew up on Long Cove Road and now I live in Martinsville. I have a 3-year-old in the 3-year-old program at St. George School. I have an 8-year-old in 3rd grade who loved playing soccer on the co-ed team. And I have a 13-year-old in 8th grade. And I am here tonight to say that it is so important for us to have love and kindness for our children. As parents, we should be thinking of that. If love and kindness means that you want to send your kid to a public school and abide by the main laws, do that. If love and kindness means that you want to homeschool your children and you don't want to send them to St. George School, do that. Either way, we should be supporting our children in our town in the way that we think is best by loving and being kind, not by excluding others around us.
Good evening. My name is Chris Austin. I'm here tonight, not just as your next candidate for District 43, but as a father of a daughter who just wants to play basketball with other girls. For her first year ever playing basketball in 3rd grade, that opportunity was taken away, not because she didn't make the team, but because of state rules that now force local programs to let boys play on girls' teams. This isn't about one child, it's about what's right, what's fair, and what's rooted in both history and truth. 1920, women earned the right to vote. 1972, Congress passed the Title IX, which says no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from participation. That phrase, on the basis of sex, is being twisted today. Title IX was written for women to protect girls from being excluded because of their biological sex. It wasn't meant to erase the difference, it was meant to protect it. Some argue they're just 3rd and 4th graders, make it co-ed like soccer. But basketball isn't soccer. It's faster, closer, more physical. Think Cooper Flag versus Caitlin Clark. Those biological differences already matter, even at this age. This isn't about exclusion, it's about fairness. Others ask, what about girls on boys' teams? That allows only when a girls' team doesn't exist, because Title IX's intent was also always to create opportunities for girls, not take them away. We parents will keep our girls playing basketball because they love the game, but not here, not in this league, where their spaces girls no longer exist. Genesis 1:27 says, so God created mankind in his own image, male and female, he created them. 2 sexes, equal in worth, different by design. Those differences make fairness possible. Before Title IX, fewer than 300,000 girls played high school sports. Today, 3.4 million do. That progress deserves protection, not revision. I ask our town leaders to stand up for women's rights, biological truth, and fairness. Read the room, see who's here to support our girls. Let's keep girls' sports for girls and set the precedent now. This will protect the future of every daughter who comes after ours. Thank you.
My name's Jesse Barkey. I have a daughter at St. George School and a son who is a sophomore in high school right now. And really what's in front of us is a question of legality, morality, and community values. The Maine Human Rights Act was first enacted over like 50 years ago and was later expanded in 2005 to include sexual orientation, gender identity, and gender expression. That means this isn't new. These rights have been in place for 20 years, but here we are arguing them right now, where this has been happening for the past 20 years. You know, the transgender athletes are not new. This law is not new. And really what it comes down to, I was taking a look through on our town website, somebody mentioned something from the training that St. George is the kind of community that everybody wishes that they had, a place where everyone has each other's back. And I want to think about how we're talking about our children right now and the decisions that we're making, whether or not we are giving each other that shirt off their back and supporting our community by looking and having conversations to exclude kids from playing with their friends. Thank you.
there anybody, oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Good evening, members of the select board and fellow residents of St. George. Thank you for your time. I want to be perfectly clear. The discussion today is about fairness in sports policy and protecting the female competitive category. My goal is to ensure that every child in St. George, regardless of identity, has access to fair and inclusive athletic opportunities. My specific request to the board and the community is simple. We must affirm the necessity of maintaining our elementary school girls' sports divisions based on biological gender to protect the integrity and spirit of fair competition. When we organize youth sports for our elementary students, roughly ages 5 to 11, the goal is participation, skill development, and fun. The establishment of the girls' team is fundamentally an equitable policy decision designed to ensure that opportunity. Even before the major physical changes of puberty, the girls' division serves a vital purpose. We want to protect participation. If a sports environment is dominated by physically larger or faster male-bodied children, young girls are far more likely to feel discouraged, overshadowed, and ultimately less likely to continue sports. Building confidence. The girls category is a necessary space where young female athletes can build crucial confidence and leadership skills by competing among their peers. This ensures the recognition and feelings of success are earned through skill and hard work with an appropriately leveled playing field. This policy is also built on biological reality, which informs how strength, speed, and size develop to ensure genuine fair play where the outcome is decided by training and effort. Puberty usually begins for girls at age 8 and boys at age 9. We're there. Allowing individuals designated male at birth onto the girls' team, even pre-puberty, undermines the very reason the separate category was established to guarantee access and opportunities for female athletes. The Maine Human Rights Law applies not just to gender identity, but to gender itself. The argument that we are discriminating by protecting gender identity implies paradoxically that we are neglecting or discriminating against the protected class of gender. To see the select board vote to protect gender identity while failing to provide explicit and robust protection for the female gender itself, a class that countless women have worked tirelessly and historically to safeguard. Our policy must protect all classes recognized under both state and federal law. We are asking the select board to affirm a clear, principle-driven policy that the girls' team in St. George Youth Sports must be reserved for biological females to protect the integrity. This action ensures that we are being.
I'd like to give an opportunity to people who are downstairs, if there's somebody who wants to speak who's downstairs, and then after that, then we can see if there's somebody on Zoom who has something they want to share. Okay, Ashley and Bill, let us know if there's somebody down there.
Yes, we're ready.
Okay, go ahead.
My name is Caleb Lawrence. My wife Betsy and I have lived in St. George for over 13 years and are proud to send our 2 daughters to the St. George School, a wonderful place where they're encouraged to practice empathy, compassion, kindness, and collaboration. I've seen firsthand how participating in team sports has built happiness and confidence in my 2 daughters and want this child to experience the same benefits. Not surprisingly, studies have shown that children participating in team sports experience increased self-esteem, develop important communication skills, and have lower rates of anxiety and depression. These important benefits of getting our kids involved in team sports are undeniable. I saw my own 2 daughters experience great joy and increased confidence playing soccer this past fall. My eldest daughter played for our middle school team in a fast-paced physical game. Not once did she or any of her female teammates object to playing with the boys. No harm came to her from competing in a co-ed athletic environment. My 7th grade daughter may have had a physical disadvantage against some of the 8th grade boys, but she took it as an opportunity to raise her game. She could have quit, called foul, or played victim, but she didn't. Similarly, many of the same so-called victims of transgender athletes don't see themselves that way at all. Last spring, the story of a transgender athlete named Soren competing for Greeley High School's track and field team drew national attention to the state of Maine. After this transgender athlete won a race, one of the female competitors, the 2nd place finisher, wrote the following: One of the reasons I chose to run cross country and track is the community. Teammates cheering each other on, athletes from different schools coming together, and the fact that the personal improvement is valued as much, if not more, than the place we finish. We're all just kids trying to make our way through school. Participating in sports is the highlight of school for some kids. No one was harmed by Soren's participation in the girls' track meet, but we were all harmed by the hateful rhetoric of bullies who want to take sports away from some kids just because of who they are. It's important to listen to the voices of the kids directly affected by transgender athletes and not just hateful rhetoric. I would encourage all of us to get the honest opinions of our children on this issue. I've asked my own children about it, and they don't see why it's a big deal. They can't understand why someone accepted as a classmate can't be accepted as a teammate. So far as I can tell, this 8-year-old child. That's 2 minutes. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Jillian Thompson, and I'm the mother of 2 daughters in 5th and 7th grades at St. George School. I'm not politically outspoken, and I've never in my life commented at a town meeting, but I feel that the stakes in this issue are too high for me not to take a stand. To put it painfully bluntly, and as Ashley alluded to, LGBTQ plus youth are more than 4 times as likely to attempt suicide than their peers. Even more specifically, nearly 2/3 of transgender or non-binary youth who came out before age 13 seriously considered suicide in the past year, and 29% of transgender and non-binary youth who came out before age 13 attempted suicide in the past year. However, parental and community acceptance has a big impact on those numbers. What's important in the context of today's meeting is that transgender and non-binary young people who came out before age 13 and ever experienced discrimination based on their gender identity reported significantly higher rates of attempting suicide this past year compared to their transgender and non-binary peers who did not experience discrimination. Let me be clear. What we're talking about today here is discrimination. It's against the law, and for trans children, it's a life or death issue. Whether you believe it's right or wrong, a community's support or lack thereof has a direct impact on their survival. The fears of the parents who are making this complaint are negligible in comparison. My morals dictate that it's my duty to do whatever I can to keep children safe. If my daughters were in this age bracket, I would be encouraging them to join this team in order to try to support and shield another child from what could be life-altering or life-threatening bullying. Since I can't do that for this child, the next best thing I can do is stand up here today, no matter how uncomfortable it makes me, to say that what's happening here is wrong and puts children in our community in danger. Please remember that we're talking about a child whose identity has minimal impact on your lives, but your actions will have a lasting impact on their future.
Hello, my name is Chip Skinner. I'm a lifelong St. George resident. I too went to St. George School, played on a co-ed soccer team. Believe we still have a banner hanging on the ceiling in there. Eastern Class C state champions, I believe. Yeah, I didn't play a lot. There were some girls on the team that were a lot better than me. Taught me a lot of things. Always respected them. Didn't want to hurt them. So saw no problem with that at the time. I think we're talking about something a little bit different now. We're all tolerant to sexes. We've come a long way since then. We're talking about protecting our children, and some people think you're not supposed to shelter your children. Well, my daughter's 6 years old, and it's my job as a father to shelter her. And when my wife and I decided to have children, there was no other place in St. George to raise a child. So I was so happy when that was an option. Well, a transgender child had tried to follow her into a bathroom already before she made it into kindergarten to see her genitals. And luckily, an adult overheard it and stopped the whole thing from happening. And I don't even want to think about what would have happened, what could have happened if nobody heard, if nobody said something. Well, now's our time to say something. It's our time to do something. We got to shelter our kids when we need to, and we need to expose them to the world when we need to. And I'm sorry, but 6, 8 years old, that's too young. They're not able to think on their own at that age. And we need to teach our children right and we need to keep them safe. And please listen to what these parents are asking for tonight. We're not asking to exclude anybody. They can still play sports, play on the team, play on a co-ed team. But if girls want to play on an all-girls team, they should not be forced to play with boys. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Meg Garrett Reed and I live in Martinsville. I want to start by saying how profoundly sad and disappointed I am that we all have to be here tonight because a group of adults have decided to spend their time and energy trying to have a child excluded from a recreational basketball team. I realize that it's unlikely that any comments will change the hearts or minds of the people trying to advance this agenda, but I genuinely hope that someday they will reflect on their choices and recognize the example that they are setting for the children in their lives about how to treat people who are different from themselves. As discussed, at ages 8 to 9, there are no particular competitive advantages in sports based on sex. At this age, kids are also not using locker rooms, so any question about privacy while changing are not at issue. All that is under debate here is whether a trans girl should be allowed to learn to dribble a basketball in the gym alongside other girls. These realities pull the mask of so-called concern away from this and other efforts to discriminate against trans girls in sports and make it clear that they are driven by an underlying belief that trans people do not or should not exist, and that they are undeserving of equal protection under the law. It's an unfortunate reality of our country that every achievement in the expansion of civil rights has had to overcome opposition from people who allow their own discomfort to blind them to the fundamental humanity of others. So I am here tonight out of a deep concern for the well-being of the child who is being targeted for exclusion and her family. I want them to know, alongside many other speakers tonight, that many people in this community respect her identity and are willing to stand up in support of her equal right to grow and thrive in St. George. The Maine Human Rights Act unequivocally requires that children be allowed to participate in the sport team that aligns with their gender identity. No currently enacted federal law supersedes or preempts that state law. I therefore urge the Select Board in the strongest possible terms to reject any request to have the town violate the Maine Human Rights Act in order to accommodate a request for discrimination. Standing firm in compliance with the law is the only legally defensible response, and more importantly, it is the right thing to do. Thank you.
Erin, do you have people who've signed up who would like to speak who are on Zoom?
If anyone wants to speak up, they can raise their hand.
If anybody on Zoom wants to speak, raise your hand. We're not gonna be reading chat remarks or anything like that.
Someone raise their hand. Okay.
Am I on?
Sure, go ahead.
My name is Peter Yans. I'm a St. George resident and the father of 2 children who went to St. George School. Another speaker really beautifully summed up the danger that does exist to a transgender student if discrimination is allowed to carry the day. I want to speak to another set of dangers. My plan was to speak more about that, but another danger we need to look at as a town and as individuals with consciences is that every step we take to endorse discrimination, whatever the intentions, whatever our underlying purpose for taking a step like this, we open the door to bullying. We open the door to deeper levels of exclusion. If our children see us saying, yes, this student should be kept off the team, this student is a danger, we are sowing fear where it does not need to exist. We are leading children to step further away from their peers, to isolate, to bully, to potentially physically harm. There are transgender and non-binary students who have been beaten, who have been killed by their peers because of the kind of fear that this move will stoke, is already stoking. The fact that this is already before our town means our children are hearing about it, are making this student other in their minds, are talking to their peers about how this student is not safe to be around because that's what adults are saying. It is simply not true. There is no danger to any person anywhere by allowing
a transgender student to play on the team that aligns with their gender identity. There is significant and serious danger in the exclusion and in being seen excluding, and in the messages that will send to our children. Thank you very much.
Have anybody else who's raised a hand on the Zoom attendees?
Not apparently.
Bill Batty said there's another commenter downstairs.
Okay, we'll take the comment from downstairs, Bill.
Hi, I'm Tamara Cody and I'm a St. George resident. And I was asked by somebody to come tonight to show support for the parents and the girls on the team who are uncomfortable with a biological boy participating on the team. And clearly, I can tell just by being here tonight that my opinion is a very unpopular opinion here and a very unwelcome opinion here. But I am here to say that it's very surprising in 2025 that we're having a discussion about girls and women needing their spaces protected from boys and men. In 2025, we're having that conversation. And we're having a conversation tonight where one student's rights are being talked about a lot, and the safety of the girls and the comfort of the girls is not really being discussed, is not really being addressed. It's painful. It's really painful. It's very painful that children are being told that they're born in the wrong body, that they're being told that there's something wrong with them, that they're being told that maybe they're a boy who's a little feminine, or maybe who's a girl who's a little masculine, and suddenly there's something inherently wrong with them and they belong on a different sports team. I'm very, very disturbed by all of this. I love my community too, and I don't want to see exclusion. I want to see reality, biological sex. I want to see girls and women feeling safe. You already see it at the NCAA level. They're not allowing this anymore. Yes, they're private entities and they're not subject to the human rights law that we're subject to in here in Maine. But we are not so unusual in this opinion in this country. There's cases going before the Supreme Court on both sides.
That's two, Tim.
Thank you.
I'm Myron Moore from St. George. I haven't written anything for this, just off the top of my head. I've played a lot of athletics in my life. I've coached a lot of athletics right here. Some of the things that have been stated aren't true. You can pick any level, boys and girls. If you put all boys on one team and all girls on another, there's gonna be a distinct advantage, guaranteed, pretty much. There are stellar female athletes that can compete with boys, but they're more of an exception than a rule. That being said, the path that I see forward is, I'm thinking about solution. I think you need to develop a stronger co-ed program here that allows something to happen for everybody. But yet, I still think you need to have something for the girls, something for the boys, and maybe the overflow, and maybe it's not just in this community, maybe it's area wide, gets together so that you have a third option. I think subjecting people to something because of a law that arbitrary and arrived at, it can change at any given time, depending on what a board decides, is not necessarily the way to go. The solution is, how do you figure your way out of it? There's a lot of disagreement, and I think everybody feels bad for the child involved, but this is gonna go on. And if you look at the upper end of it, you have Caitlyn Jenner, was Bruce Jenner, saying that there's an unfair advantage at the top level. You have Leah Thomas as an NCAA swimmer that was ranked 400 and whatever. When he was competing in the men's column, number 1 and 2 events, and he switched and started competing in the women's column. I just think, how do you progress? How do you move it forward? You're always gonna have this unless you try and figure out a way out of it. And to me, to develop a co-ed program that's inclusive and allows people to play at that level is maybe the way to go. Thank you.
And Delaney, I live in St. George as well. At the beginning of high school, we didn't even have, we had co-ed. And I think that was what we had. And I recognized that eventually we had male, female, and it did quite well. So I don't think it's a problem of whom is whom, if you will, but it's just a question of what does the word have for a meaning? And if we recognize hot, cold, on, off, port, starboard, forward, aft, those words have a meaning. And if you recognize wisdom as words that don't change, then we can recognize where we're at right now. And I think, yeah, it's true. We want to love these children. We love because he first loved us. It's in there. There are so many changing things happening right now that I don't know. Let's support one another, love one another, and find a solution. But please, let's keep those words, those meanings, hold fast to that, because that's what we are. So it's quite simple, I think. We don't want to change hot and cold and on and off, or port and starboard. You might get bad.
I'm gonna try to keep this as unemotional as possible. I have lived in this town for 51 years. I have 2 older brothers and myself who attended this school. I have had 3 children of my own. I now have a grandson in this. I think that it's very sad that as a community, that we all have to come together because we have one transgender child in our school who wants something. I think that in my experience, my children's experiences, my brother's experiences, that there's been a lot of other times that this town should have come together for other children, not just transgender children. I have one child who moved out of this town because she refused to bring her children to this school because of the treatment she received, not only from other children, but from teachers and principals. I have another child who has decided not to have children at all because he does not want any more children to go through the bullying, the disrespect, and the mistreatment, not only that he entailed from his teachers, whom I tried to speak up and protect not only my son, but other boys in his class who had a problem with this teacher, to be told that he was shit out of luck because she was grandfathered in, even though he sat in the hallway crying every day because his teacher disliked him and sent him out of the room. I have a daughter who stood up for her friends on the playground that was being bullied, and we had a principal who told her that was not what we did in this community or in any other community. We do not stand up for our friends. I was bullied incredibly 40 years ago in sports in this school, just because of who I am, not because of my choices or my lifestyle. And it's something that to this day still bothers me. And I think that if we were to come together as a community to fight for our children, then we should learn to fight for all of them, not just one. Thank you.
Now? There was a question asked of a parent last week.
Sorry.
I'm sorry.
Do you
I'm
live
on the
in St.
peninsula.
George?
You're not in St. George.
We
You know
are,
where I live? Yes.
are you a St. George?
I'm on the peninsula.
Are you a St. George resident, yes or no?
No.
No,
Okay,
but I
then
waited till
we
everybody.
made a decision to hear only from St. George residents. And that's a.
Well,
we've been
there's
told
no
by-
such thing as a transgender child.
For those of you that don't know me, my name is Austin Farnham, and I live in St. George. This is not a matter for debate, this is a matter of Maine law. The Maine Human Rights Act guarantees this child the right to participate in town-sponsored activities consistent with her gender identity. To the select board, your duty is clear. You must ensure immediate and unequivocal compliance with state law. Excluding this child would be a clear act of illegal discrimination and expose the town to severe legal liability. You must instruct the Parks and Recreation Department to fully support this child's right to play without qualification. I want to speak directly to those parents who are here today advocating for this ban. While your concerns may feel real to you, they are fundamentally unjustified in the context of a recreational youth league and contrary to the law. By demanding exclusion, you are asking the town to break the law and to actively teach your children that it is acceptable to isolate and target a young teammate. We must prioritize teaching our children empathy, not fear. The focus of this town meeting should not be on questioning a child's right to play, but on the accountability of those who seek to exclude her. To those demanding this third grader be removed from a recreational team, you are demanding the town inflict harm on a child. Our town's mandate is to foster sportsmanship, community, and inclusion. We must not allow fear and prejudice to override basic fairness. I call on the select board to stand firmly for the law, for our community values, and for the dignity of every single child in St. George. Let this child play. The discrimination must end now.
I think we've heard a lot of perspectives. Does the select board feel like we've heard enough? Brian, Tammy?
Everybody's done.
Yeah, okay. All right, we will close public comment now, and you're to just remain quiet and observe during the period when we discuss the decision that faces us and make our vote. And I'll start by saying, you know, it's not our role to determine or debate the law. We do have legal advice. We've been given guidance by the Human Rights Commission, and we've been told that the law is clear. And we've had other matters before us as a select board where some of us agree with a law where we felt like it was a burden to follow or inconvenient. But in recent years, this board has consistently voted to follow the law. And I guess I would urge anyone on the select board to, if you don't agree with the law, you should feel free to say that. But I would hope that people would vote to follow the law, given that if we vote to not follow the law, we're inviting a lawsuit. We're inviting a lawsuit we would lose, and the taxpayers of our town would have to foot the bill. And in addition to that, we've been told that we could be held personally liable for discriminating against someone. And that's, you know, obviously worthy of our individual consideration. So, you know, this has been the law in Maine for 20 years. And even this legislative session that just ended, there were 8 bills before the legislature that might have changed the ability of trans people to play in sports or engage in other activities. And those were all rejected. So the law is clear, and I know that arguments have been made tonight that other laws somehow supersede the Maine Human Rights Act. But that has not been determined by any court as of now. If the Supreme Court decides differently, you know, a year from now, then, you know, I'm always gonna vote to follow the law. And as of today, this is the law in Maine, and that's my belief that we should follow the law, and if it changes, I'll either vote to follow the law or I'll resign if I don't. I'm unwilling to do that. So you all should share your thoughts.
Well, I agree with you. I don't think we have any choice but to follow Maine's human rights act.
I also believe it's unequivocally and morally the right thing to do for the children of this town and for our community. And I respect people who have a different point of view. No disrespect intended. Good people can disagree and still get along, as we proved tonight. It's a good thing to see. I really appreciate the respect we've given one another here tonight.
Yes.
That says so much about this town that I dearly love, like the rest of you do. And I don't know if we make a motion.
Well, I want Tammy and Brian to have a chance to speak.
Well, I'm sorry, but I don't agree with this. It's not fair to both sides. And these children, fine, they're small right now, let them play, but there needs to be something in place as they get older and the hormones go crazy. And I don't care what anybody says, a boy goes in a girl's locker room. And anybody that went through puberty and is an adult now and has dealt with this stuff, it's not good. I'm sorry, but I don't agree. This is just a tip of a huge iceberg. And right now we have little kids, but they're gonna grow up. And if we don't do something to at least stop the locker room, bathroom piece of this, it's just not good for girls. It's not fair to the girls. Have another team. Have a separate team.
Brian, did you want to say anything?
I can't say that I 100% disagree or agree with either side. And I don't quite understand why federal law doesn't supersede state law. But, I do know that, you know, Title IX, the federal Title IX included gender identity up until the federal court ruled that it was unconstitutional and removed it from it. Because it was discriminatory against biological girls.
We're not gonna debate the law because I would disagree.
Opinion, that's my.
Right. But yeah, right, go ahead, I'm not.
Well, I do believe that our state laws are discriminating against biological girls, and I believe they are entitled to their own teams and their own space.
Everybody's entitled to their own space.
So I'll make a motion. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say? I'll make a motion that the town of St. George abide by the Maine Human Rights Act in all town programs, services and facilities, including our Parks and Recs programs.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on the motion? All in favor? All opposed? The motion carries. So that concludes tonight's select board meeting. I do want to thank everybody for how respectfully listen to our neighbors, because we do all care about this community and our shared values are much deeper than any one issue. And I hope we can hold together and not let this pull us apart. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
All in favor? The meeting's adjourned.